I'll see you guys in the dark.
Last year on a Saturday night, shortly after 1 a.m., I heard someone creep up my staircase. I live in a 2-story home on the second floor. I heard the cracking of the wood steps. I paused my TV show. I listened in. I heard it some more. Then I heard a long pause. Nothing. Then I hear my doorknob jiggling. I freak out. I know it's not the woman downstairs because she's gone for the night. I went straight to the door. I have one of those doors where it's half glass window. Because I live in a tiny town and my upstairs staircase is covered, so technically no one can see inside unless they are standing right at the door. And even at that, they all can see is part of my doorway into the bedroom and my hallway, but nothing more. So I had the light on at the door. Inside, the outside light was off. So when I went to the door, I couldn't see out of it. I couldn't see who was there. When I showed myself at the door, obviously the doorknob stopped jiggling because I made my presence known, and they could obviously fully see me because my lights were on. Shut the inside lights off real quick as an attempt to see who was out there, but it took my eyes too long to adjust, and as I shut the lights off, I simultaneously hit the second lock on my door, and that's when the person on the other side of the door started banging on it. I couldn't see who it was, and quite honestly, once the banging started, I bolted. And so did they. So I tried to look out my window to catch a glimpse of who it could be, but I couldn't see anything. The exit of the staircase is too close to the house for me to have a full view of from the second floor, which is a shame. So I called the cops, filed a report, and all was good in the world. I equipped my home with wasp spray hidden in every corner. I did develop major anxiety over it, though. Like major anxiety. I had never been afraid to live alone before this, but I have worked through it for the most part, and have gotten better since this last year. I got a hidden camera that I have at my door that streams to an app on my phone. Ongoing minor issues. The last couple of months, I have been having issues, though. I park in the little parking lot across the street. The little lot belongs to the church I live next to. However, I am allowed to park there. I keep finding the sides of my license plates completely bent outwards at a 90-degree angle every morning. I know because I put them back in place every day so the plates are flat, because you can't drive around with your license plates like that. And pretty much every day of the week, I go outside to find my plates bent back. I know it's not the wind, and I know it can't happen while I'm driving because I check. My dad, however, has convinced me that it could be the car wash. I get my car washed at least once a week or two, and it's the kind where you just pay a machine and you sit in your car. So I just brushed it off. And recently I came home to find 3 things on a little shelf I keep outside my door. 2 small crystal bowls and a little flower pot with a golden retriever on it. At first I thought, oh, my sister or grandmother probably just left it for me. I texted them about it, and they both said no, they didn't leave anything. They both live on my block, so I thought it would be probable for them to just do that. But both of them said it wasn't them. Then my next thought would be that it's my mom. See, anytime my mom gets me stuff, she leaves it on her front porch. So she will always text me a picture of whatever she got me and say, it's here on the porch, get it when you can stop by. In the year and a half I've lived in this apartment, she has never left something on my porch. Also, my camera was dead, so I texted her about it, and she didn't answer me. Which is like her. If it doesn't pertain to her, she doesn't answer. Also, I'm slightly confused about the golden retriever planter, because everyone knows I'm a cat person. And that's what everyone who knows me gets me. Tonight at around 1:19 a.m., I was in my bedroom texting my sister when I heard banging on my door again. The lady who lives downstairs is gone for the night yet again. This exact same thing happened a year ago, too. A Saturday night right after 1 a.m. All the lights in my apartment were on, so they knew I was home. If they wanted to break in, they could have. If they wanted my valuables, they have 60 hours out of the week every week this last year to do so. No, whoever is messing with me just wants to mess with me. I didn't know what to do. My phone was on the other side of the apartment, and I couldn't get it without going past the door. So I told my sister through text message on my laptop, and she called the cops for me. They arrived, and I knew because I saw them searching the property with their flashlights, and I met them at the door. I filed a report and noped out of there, and now I'm sleeping at my sister's house for the night. But this is seriously freaking me out. Someone is messing with me in a very serious way. They know I'm home. They know I'm up. They know the woman who lives downstairs is gone. They know the camera isn't charged. Coincidentally, these things keep happening when my camera isn't charged, which takes hours to do, and I am so paranoid of leaving something charged while I'm asleep or not at home. I don't have any enemies in this area. I don't really know anyone in this town except for a coworker or two. My landlord and my family, who is new to the area as well. I don't have any ex-boyfriends trying to scare me. I haven't fought with anyone who is trying to get revenge on me. But I should mention that about 9 or 10 years ago, I did have a bit of a stalker situation. A 55-year-old man who lived adjacent to my job. He came in every day for a year. We never spoke directly or even had a conversation. He would leave me notes on my car. The first one he left was a 5-page letter speaking about our compatibility with one another. He mentioned things in the letter I would speak about with other customers in regards to our compatibility. He even mentioned that he believes he could sexually please me. Something along the lines of how I am a special person, and he has what it takes, and it's the kind of special that most people don't have what it takes. He would leave me crystal antique hearts on my car. Anyways, I got a restraining order on him. He was no longer allowed to enter my job. He would occasionally stare at me through the cracks of his blinds. And that was about it. Moved out of the state, and nothing ever happened of it. So that could definitely be a possibility as well. But I'm not quite sure about that. When this took place, I was 22, and I'm 5'1", so I'm not very intimidating. I used to work as a kindergarten teacher, and I would meet parents and other family members all the time. I've made extremely good relationships with all my students, and good impressions on their caretakers. One day, about a month late, we got a new transfer student from another school on the other side of town. Right off the bat, I hated his dad. He was creepy and always looked at me with a certain look. I brushed it off at first because I've had male caretakers hit on me before since I was single at the time. The child was weird. He would bully kids in the weirdest way. He would tell the kids that he wanted to cut off their fingers and eat them like corn dogs. I had a conference with the dad and child after school, and he didn't seem angry or uncomfortable like I would assume most parents would be. He just had a small smile like he was trying to hide how proud he was. He never took his eyes off my mouth. It made me extremely uncomfortable. We finished the conference and agreed he would have no recess for a week. Months went by, and I had gotten a boyfriend. We were walking in an outdoor shopping mall on a date when I felt someone watching us. I felt like the eyes burning into the back of my head. We walked inside a furniture store, and my boyfriend looked so uncomfortable. "There's a man that's been following us. Let's go," he whispered to me. I don't say anything, but he knows that I agree. We walk out. He wraps his arm around my hip. "Miss K?" I heard behind me. I turned, and it was the child and the dad. "We saw you walking and thought we'd come and say hi," he smirks. He looks at my boyfriend and glares at him. He is 6'3" and has the build of a Viking, but extremely fit. He has the beard and all as well. He could be considered extremely intimidating, but he's just one big teddy bear. Let's call him John. "This is John, my husband," I smiled. I lied because I knew if guys hear husband, sometimes they back off. The dad seemed very put off by this, like he was going to attack him. We awkwardly talked for a moment and then drove home. Fast forward 4 years, and John and I got married. We moved to a new home. It had many windows and was extremely gorgeous. We had put metal stoppers on the windows because we don't trust people, even though we were in a very nice neighborhood. John and I were spring cleaning, and it felt like someone was watching me. John was next to me washing the top of the fridge, and I instinctively looked out the window to see a car across the street. I asked John if he knew who it could be, and he said no. Closed the blinds, also being creeped out by it. That night, we were falling asleep on the couch, and in the living room, we had two extremely large windows that faced the backyard. John had fallen asleep, and I was still watching when I heard weird metallic tapping on the glass. I played it off and used my peripherals to look out the window. I got a glimpse of a shadow passing by, and I woke up John. I told him someone was at the window, and thank God for my great taste in men. He used to be a police officer, and then even till now is a firefighter. We keep a crowbar next to the front door and a metal bat behind the couch. He grabs the bat and hands it to me. He slowly walks around to the dining room, and under the table is a gun he keeps for emergencies. I called 911, and I heard John run out of the front door quickly. "You bastard! I have a gun, and have no problem shooting you," he yells. And since it was 1:15 in the morning, he couldn't get the license plate. I filed a report, and the cops who came knew John. They said that they would have someone patrol the house for a week or so. Fast forward again to a month-ish later. We were in bed, and I happened to need to pee at like 3 in the morning. I came out the bathroom and felt someone grab my face, and I had no fighting experience, so I didn't know how to defend myself. The bathroom door swings in, and there is a towel bar behind it, so when the door hits, it is super loud. I slammed my arm against the door, and John is a very light sleeper, so I was hoping that he heard it. I felt really drowsy, and felt the person dragging me. I wake up in the hospital, saw John in the chair next to me. I asked him what happened, and he said he grabbed the metal pipe from under the bed and attacked the man. He shattered his jaw, broke his kneecaps. When the man was unconscious, John turned the lights on to see it was the dad. He called the police, and I am apparently mildly allergic to chloroform. To this day, we have no idea how he got in the house. The front and back doors have glass doors, so we locked the glass and the main doors before going to bed. We never opened the windows further than the guards, and there are screens on the windows. There's no sign of forced entry and no fingerprints anywhere from the guy. Now I'm putting my doctorates to good use and teaching university students. They are much more tolerable, and I feel safer since the university is a few blocks down from the fire station. To that kid, I hope that you grow out of the weird sadistic phase, and to the dad, I hope that you rot in jail for what you have done. Back in my high school years, I'd often meet with friends at a local Dunkin' Donuts, which was conveniently near a railway we'd all take to our weed guy's house. My closest friend at the time, Katie, and I usually meet up earlier than anyone else just to hang out, order our extra large drinks and hash browns, and attempt at some "hey, mister" type of shenanigans to score some tall boys from anyone willing to buy us some beer. I'd consider us to be pretty naive and overly nice girls, which never proved to be an issue to either of us, until we were nice to the wrong person. Now, for a little background of my hometown, I grew up in the forgotten borough of New York City, Staten Island. For those who are unaware, there was, and kind of still is, a pretty horrendous opioid epidemic, so seeing zombie-like civilians strolling the streets is fairly common. Because of this, I became pretty good at spotting out someone struggling with heroin and things of the sort. Anyways, on this day, Katie and I met up at Dunkin' and sat at our usual booth. We were in the midst of messing around with our phones and being overly giggly selves when I noticed out of the corner of my eye someone suddenly stop outside of the glass door. Still smiling, I glanced over to see if it was maybe one of our friends, and ended up making eye contact with a basic Staten Island looking dude. I looked away, unbothered, and carried on. Just another customer anyways. After the guy got his coffee, he sat directly at the table across from our booth. I chose to ignore the fact he sat weirdly close, and resisted eye contact with him, since that already awkwardly happened. But I guess the motion caught Katie's attention as she looked over her shoulder at the man settling in. She looked back at me, made a face that said, okay," and we just giggled and tried to move on. Every now and then, I glance in his direction, mainly because I like to be observant of my surroundings, but also because I keep seeing him scratch at his nose, neck, and face in my peripheral vision. and noticed he was bleeding from various little cuts on his body. This was a dead giveaway he was doing some form of opiate, as they tend to get very itchy and scratch until they break the skin. A few minutes later, the man asked if one of us had a charger he could borrow. I kindly denied, and Katie only had an iPhone charger, while the man clearly had an Android. This slight change was enough for the man to feel invited, and he'd continue to make comments for quite some time. Being that this was about 4 years ago, I don't remember the entire conversation, but I do remember him often asking general questions, like if we live around here, what we do on our off in our free time, and creepy things of the sort. I was pretty vague, yet polite in my responses, but Katie was always a bit more enthusiastic in her words, making it pretty easy for this guy to reciprocate and basically join our conversation altogether. In Katie's innocent stupidity, the guy basically found out some of the main train stops we'd get off at to hang in those areas. He also found out that we would indulge in the devil's lettuce, which only made this guy feel even more inclined. At some point, he mentioned how his ex-girlfriend got him into some trouble, got him into heroin, which he used to sell, served jail time for, and pretty recently got out. He also mentioned how he'd been in an ice cream truck and a driver ever since his release, and told us that he's always driving around the train stops Katie mentioned earlier. He also repeatedly offered to give us rides around in his truck someday, with free ice cream as the bribe. Again, we were pretty naive and overly nice girls, Katie more so than I. So one thing led to another, and eventually this guy was asking for Katie's social media, which she happily obliged to. She's always been really dedicated to expanding her follower count. Throughout all of this entire exchange, I was mostly just nodding, smiling, laughing here and there, so my remaining silence during the social media exchange went unnoticed. However, once the guy started following Katie on Instagram, he quickly found mine through a tagged picture on her page. I wasn't private at the time, so he immediately started liking and commenting on nearly every one of my pictures. The comments were extremely cringy, consisting of heart eye and water squirt emojis and things like, "Damn, ma." Finally, after the longest half hour ever, I urged we should really be catching our train. Fortunately, the man wasn't persistent after that, and we were on our way with no problem. After some verbal recap of what just happened, I convinced Katie to block him, and I did the same. We brushed it off with just that. I honestly forgot about the strange interaction until about a week later. I was hanging out with some friends at a park near my high school when Munchies made me crave Ralph's ice cream, which was just up the block. I ventured off with one other friend, and also made it to the store before the sound of an ice cream truck approached from behind us. Completely lost in conversation, my attention was only caught by the high-pitched screeching of the truck's brakes and a somewhat familiar voice. Of course, it was him. He shouted out to me with Ralph's only a couple feet in front of us. I ignored him and rushed in my friend. The guy didn't stick around, being that he was blocking the whole lane on a narrow two-way road, but we still called our friend at the park to pick us up in his car. For the next 2 weeks, there were about 4 times this man tried to pick me up in his truck. At this point, making me pretty paranoid I was potentially being stalked. The last time it happened, he was parked directly outside of one of the train stops, almost as if he was waiting for me. He again called out to me, asking why I blocked him, and saying he just wants to be friends. At this point, I had enough, and told him to just leave me alone. My dad's a lieutenant, which was a lie, but slipped out in my defense. I walked away before he could respond, and into the diner I was meeting my friends at that night. I saw his truck drive away in the window, and never had an interaction with the ice cream man again. The sound of the ice cream truck has haunted me ever since that very day. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.